Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell Podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course. We are pleased to be joined by the one, the only, the mayor of Michigan High School Hockey. That is Sean Baglian of State Champs Hockey Time. How's it going, Sean?
Oh, it's always great to talk to you, especially, with the playoffs upon us, Casey. It's a blast. Best time of the year. Good games all over the state. So getting ready to fire it up again.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's though we've talked about this all year long about all these teams. This is the time, and a lot of coaches are saying, this is where the real season starts. It's the climb for a lot of teams to get back to USA, or teams that haven't been there, or teams that have never been there. So, what's that going to be like as we enter in? Because games start on Wednesday.
You're right. It's a whole new season, and there are certain teams and certain coaches that seem to find another level each and every year out of their team, and take them to places that maybe a lot of people didn't expect them to be unless you've been paying attention for a while. And I know that you've been following this for a long time now, Casey, and doing a heck of a job. But this is one of those scenarios where there are teams you can never ever count out, no matter how their season went, no matter how their season ended. And that's what makes it fun. And I often talk about the usual suspects. This is also a time where you can make your name into that group of the usual suspects. It's not that long ago. Byron Center was a team that what's going on over there and everything. But when you keep banging on that door, when you keep winning big games and making long runs, well, then all of a sudden you become one of those usual suspects. And I mean, to me, they are the clear favorite in D2. I'm not taking anything away from anybody else, including one of those guys and Coach Chappett and Brother Rice that always seem to kick it up a notch come playoff time. But, those are just a couple of examples of what we talk about, and that's what makes this time of year so stinking fun.
Yeah. Let's start with Division One. Obviously it stops and starts with Detroit Catholic Central. If you got Brighton, you got Clarkston, you got Heartland. Two of them are in the same region. D1's got some good games. Before we kind of talk about the teams that as you like to call it, the usual suspects. Who are some intriguing matchups you're gonna possibly watch as in these regional rounds?
I'm excited to see how it plays out on the west side, to be honest with you, Casey, because I think, Sparta is a team that a lot of people have been talking about, and they put up such a good record this year. And I think a lot of people expect them to come out of Region 1. And it's always fun when Forest Hills Central and Forest Hills NE get together, if they can both get to that point. Obviously, there are a few teams that can have a say about that, but I'm going to be really intrigued to see how that plays itself out. Is it an FHNE against a Sparta? Can one of those other teams pull an upset? So I'm going to be really intrigued to see how that plays itself out. I love, I've been calling it the KLAA brackets. I love those. Obviously in Brighton, you throw in Pioneer and of course Coach Zagata with Celine, and they have to take on Brighton, who I mean, you've had an up close and personal look at that. Brighton's one of the best teams in the state, period, end of story. Northville Novi has me really intrigued.
Yes.
That is next Saturday. I can't wait for that one. I think they're two up-and-coming programs that, really in varying degree had good seasons this year. I think Northville was a team that was ranked most of the year. I think Novi has found their stride late in the season. And then over in Livonia, that's really cool because you throw Southgate Anderson into the mix and New Boston Huron into the mix. And then you got Plymouth and Salem and Livonia Stevenson. So there are so many cool storylines, I think, in Division One this year.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to kind of go back to Novi Northville for a minute. You obviously you have a perspective on it. I've covered tons of Novi Northville games and in really any sport, and it's but the thing is, you do not. I mean, you don't live that. This is an area where you live, so this is kind of explain this rivalry for people that may not be familiar with it.
Yeah, it's real. I think anybody that follows, especially football, you see it in football, and it's every bit as real in the hockey side. We were there the night before Thanksgiving. It was a great atmosphere for the Northville Novi game. Northville found a way to win that game, but you had the band there, you had a ton of kids there. All these kids grew up playing with each other, whether it be together or against each other. And, mark my words, I'm telling you, both of these programs, I think in a couple year time, are going to be really good. And you're used to that in your neck of the woods. I certainly don't want to forget about the job that Howell is doing.
Right.
That's a team to keep an eye on. And as you mentioned, Heartland and Clarkson. I mean, Ricky Gadwa, this is his time of year. He always kicks it up a little bit. And that Clarkston team, they would love nothing more than to take the next step in their process as well. But no, you're right. In my backyard, it's funny. Like Casey, I live like right on the border, like across the street from me are kids from Novi. Even though my kids went to Northville, like right across the street from me are kids from Novi. So it's fun out here the way it's configured, and it should be a great game at KV next Saturday.
Yeah. When you look at what Novi, of course, we'll obviously talk about more about Novi Northville when Dane comes on here for a few hours for this week's Cats Corner. So should be fun one there. You mentioned Howell. Well, we always got to talk about the Livingston County teams on here because obviously that's my backyard. Howell, when you look at what they've been able to do this year, this is probably, one of Howell's best teams that they've had in a while. They're in three. I know Cap City's in their region. What's the outlook for Howell this year?
This is a team that had a lot of promise this year, and in my mind, Casey, they've lived up to that promise. I mean, when you find yourself consistently in the top 10, top 15 range, I think that tells something. But I think Rocky would be the first guy to say to you, Keith, the entire staff, it's what you do at playoff time, and they have an opportunity to make a really big statement. It's not going to be easy. Let's be honest. It's not going to be easy, that bracket in and of itself. And then, you have to move on, and you might have a date with, your old friends from Heartland, or dare I say Clarkston, if they can pull it off. So it's not going to be easy. But the one thing that I would say benefits Howell in this process is they play that KLA schedule, and they go out and play other teams as well. And I give a tip of the cap. You don't have to schedule some of those games that you schedule, but they schedule them because it gets you battle tested. It gets you ready for these playoff wars. So I'm going to be really intrigued. Look, that's a good Howell team. I know you and I have talked about it all year. In my rankings, I've had them in the top 10, top 15 all year long. So you're doing something right when you find yourself in that rarefied air. But I think everything about this team was okay. That's great. But what can we do? I know that's the goal that they have for themselves. What can we do in the playoffs? So they're going to have an opportunity to make a big statement. The pieces are there. They've got the goaltending. They've got the defense. They've got the guys up front. It's, can you go out there and find a way to win those big games and punch your ticket to USA Hockey Arena?
Let's talk about Heartland for a second. They're in the region with Clarkston.
Mm-hmm.
They got to USA last year once again, and had the battle with Brighton. And a lot of people are expecting to, have that happen again, but they have to also go through Clarkston as well. For Heartland, what has impressed you about them? And then possibly, and then also this is, we talk about it all the time. This is usually the time where Brighton starts to turn on the wicker.
Yeah, I mean that. Yeah, you could say that about both those teams. I mean, in recent years, Ricky Gadwa seems to get the best out of his team come playoff time. They play such a tough schedule each and every year, no doubt about that. I've said this once. I think you and I talked about it. I've said it on the State Champ show. The way they move the puck, I mean, that's the secret sauce with this team. I haven't seen a team move the puck like that in a long time at this level. And when you got a guy like Ian Castamo, I can't say enough about that kid. I just love watching that kid play. He's still only a junior. It seems like he's been on our radar for so many years now. They're going to be tough for anybody to beat. It's got to be a weird scenario for Heartland because normally they're used to being a favorite, and anybody that wants to count Heartland out, I would just say you are making a mistake. You can never count Heartland out. I think Coach Gadwin and his staff, some of the best coaches in the state, and they've got another team capable to making another deep run. And as you mentioned, I mean, you got Clarkston. Look, these guys have been knocking on the door the last couple of years. I mean, with Wade and Croston up front, you got two dynamic players up there. They would love nothing more than to take that next step. And boy, you want to make people notice, knock off a team the caliber of Heartland. So that should be really fun.
Yeah. And you, of course, look at, the path that Brighton's taken. Of course, they've been to the state finals the last few years. They've won, it wasn't that long ago that they've won, that they were winning state titles, of course, then beating Detroit Catholic Central. But, and I know in the last few years, of course, CC's going for their fifth title in a row. It'd be the second time in history that they've done that. But what's it going to be like to see, the road for Brighton as they head for another state final run?
I love this team. I haven't ever hidden it. I think this is a team that's been, really, Casey, 3 years in the making, because all those sophomores, going back a couple years ago, Levi and Duff and Petit, all those guys are seniors now, and it's been so much fun to watch them elevate their game like that. Each and every one of them. I think Watkins back on the blue line gives them a dynamic that not a lot of other teams have. He is really, a big part of the cog of that machine, so to speak. This is a Brighton team, as far as I'm concerned. Casey, top 5 team in my mind. I think probably number 2 in Division I right now. They know, like everybody else, look, it's not a secret. CC is the team to beat. And, I think they're deeper than they were last year. I think all those juniors are now seniors and therefore better than they were last year. In my humble opinion, I think if anybody could give CC a good run, I think it's this Bulldog team. I can't say enough about Kurt and Eddie. I mean, they're two great coaches. They're two class guys, as you well know. And it's been fun to watch this group go like this the last couple of years, as dangerous as they've been. And they've been very dangerous, as you know. I think they're next level dangerous this year. But of course, the task at hand is Catholic Central, who has turned into a machine. And I say that with respect. I'm one of those people. I think it's good for this product. I really do. I've said it once. I've said it 1,000 times, Casey. I think their top 4 lines are better than I've ever seen. And I don't think it's close, quite frankly. I'm not saying this is the best CC team or anything like that, but boy, when you talk about, their depth up front, my goodness gracious, you are going to have a Herculean effort and use every bit of your depth to knock off that Catholic Central team. But if any team can do it in D1, it's going to be Brighton. But boy, you better be ready. That's going to be a marathon. You're going to have to go a full 51 minutes and maybe even more. So I hope they have the oxygen handy.
And then, of course, they got to get there first because they could possibly have another showdown with Heartland again. And
Yep.
who knows what could happen there, or possibly Howell.
Yeah, they have a great game last year. That was, I don't think anybody will forget that semifinal game, with all the overtimes, and it could have gone either way. And I'll always respect Coach Gadwa, because after the game, I saw him downstairs and he looked at me with a big smile. True story, Casey. He looked at me and he goes, "Wasn't that a great game?" And I was like, "Ricky, that's why I love you. Any other coach would be all ticked off. And I can't believe we lost that game." Big smile on his face. He goes,
Ricky.
"Wasn't that a great game?" And
Yep.
it was a great game and a great atmosphere. And, I think, again, Casey, it kind of puts into focus just how good hockey is, not only in this state, but in your backyard in Livingston County.
Absolutely. Let's go to Division II, where we I think the story this year is, I know we kind of talked about it. Can Byron Center get back to the state finals, and can they win it? And also, there's so many teams that could stand in their way. And, this is the time where Brother Rice usually gets going. And U of D Jesuit has kind of came on this season as well. What's your outlook for D2?
I'm with you. I mean, look, BC's the team to beat. I think they came oh so close the last couple of years, really close last year, and much like Brighton, they have a group of guys that have been together for a while. I think up front, Freusland and Pratt. If you follow high school hockey at all, you know their names, and they've gone next level this year. And I love Freusland's game. I talked about it a lot last year when we got a chance to see them, and all he's done is continue to do that this year. So, that's a pretty cool dynamic. But Casey, as you said, it's easier said than done. It's one thing to be the favorite; it's another thing to fulfill your role as favorite as well. I like their chances. You mentioned Brother Rice, Kenny Chaput every year does a good job of getting his team playing the right way at the right time. So Brother Rice is always going to be dangerous. I said it since week 1 this year, and I'm going to keep saying it. I really like this Trenton team. I like this Trenton team a lot, and I think they've kind of proven that. I think, Casey, this is their best team maybe since the team that won the championship 10 years ago, Trenton's last championship. I think Chad and his staff have done a great job with this team. They play that Trenton style. I think they've got better depth and maybe some better talent than people give them credit for. So I won't be surprised at all if Trenton makes a big run. And then, the other side intrigues me as well because, yeah, Bay City, everybody talking about Bay City and, Gunner, and obviously he's put up some big numbers. Another guy that gets his team playing the right way this time of year and makes that run to USA almost on a yearly basis is JJ Bamberger and Saginaw Heritage. That's a team you can never, ever count out Heritage. So it's going to be fun. That's one of those games I wish I could blow up there if those two teams eventually meet, and certainly it looks like they will. I'd really like to see that rematch between Bay City and Saginaw Heritage. But no, Casey, you're right. I think it starts. I think it starts with BC. Jordan's done such a great job there, and they came down to the showcase and had 2 tough losses, and I think that stuck in their craw, and so they're out to prove everybody that BC is rightfully the favorite in D2. So it'll be a fun run in D2 as well.
And plus, it'll also be like, you look at other, you look at them and because they went to the, I don't think they've forgotten what happened last year in the
No.
state finals either. So I think that is all. And we talked about this last time you were on here. I think it is the driving force behind, this season. It's like, you think that we're just going to do this. Okay. We'll watch this.
And I think there's a lot of that going on. And we're going to get to Division 3 in a second. I think a lot of that same dynamic is going on in Division 3
Yeah.
as well. I mean, if it wasn't for Rosa going superhero, and he did. He went
Yeah.
superhero in the entire, the semis and the finals. BC would have had a championship last year, and I don't think they forgot about that. I'm with you.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to Division 3. I think the story there is, again, more tough teams. And also, is this the year that, we talked about Byron Center and it's like, when are we going to win one? And the same can be also said about Houghton, but Houghton may have an even tougher road because, they got to play Calumet and then they got to go possibly have a possible showdown with Marquette.
Yeah, I feel for those teams up there. I've said it every year that I've done this. I wish we could configure it in a different way. I don't think it's right that you have a great Hancock team that might be out early, or Houghton for what it's worth. And you know what? I'll include that to the other side as well, Casey. Don't overlook Sioux. As much as I like Marquette, I think Dougie Garrow's done a good job. That Sioux
Yep.
team is really pesky. I had a chance to see them down in the showcase. I think they're playing the right way as well. But no, you're absolutely right. I think Houghton is a team, much like we were talking about BC. They remember what happened last year. I mean, that was a heartbreaking loss to
Yeah.
EGR, and give EGR full credit. And EGR is feeling the same way right now. They had a heartbreaking loss. to Flint Powers. And
Yeah.
while I'm bringing up Flint Powers, let's not forget about Travis Perry and Flint Powers. They are the the defending Division III champion. And in my humble opinion, while everybody's kind of been talking about, some of the teams that we mentioned, Flint Powers has kind of been sitting in the background going, yoo-hoo, remember us, we're the champions. And I think that's what makes that so intriguing. Division III is without a doubt, in my humble opinion, the division of intrigue this year, because I think there are a lot of teams that could make a case. The Bay Reps, we've seen them play so well. And I think a lot of people have them making an appearance at USA Hockey Arena. I mentioned the Pioneers. Boy, did they make some noise when they came to the showcase and had two convincing wins the way that they did. No doubt about that. Coach Newton's done a fantastic job. Boy, when they're rolling, they are fun to watch. Casey, that first period of the UDJ EGR game was unbelievable. And it was really funny. I was talking to some players from other teams that watched that first period, including a guy, I'm not going to mention his name, who walked up to me with a big smile on his face. He was like, how good was that first period? And I was like, you got that right. So, that's what makes it intriguing. But listen, I'm going to say it. I think Mike has done such a good job with that team. You saw them really give CC, all they could handle down at the showcase. And I think that they're ready to take the next step. I really do. They've come so close, have the Gremlins, but when I look at this Gremlin team, they've got it in all aspects of the game. They're getting the fantastic goaltending out of Lee. I think they've got a good defense core. I think they're solid up front. Millette is unbelievable. For people that haven't seen him, boy, he is fun to watch and he can fly. I'm going to go with Houghton. You have to pick one, but I'm going to repeat it. I think Division III is the one of intrigue. There are legitimately a handful of teams that could make the claim by tournament's end, and that's why we play the games.
Yeah. You also, and there's one more team I think in Division III that's really intrigued me. Orchard Lake St. Mary's.
Absolutely.
What's the what are they feeling like as they make a run, because they start off pretty hot. I know they've had a couple tough losses here in the last few weeks, but what's their outlook heading into
No, you're absolutely right. I think they've got to be hungry. They had a couple tough losses late in the season, and I had them at number 2 just a couple weeks ago. And let's not forget they knocked off BC as well, which was a huge win for them. A lot of times you want to be heading in the right direction. Like I'll use the Pioneers as an example. Riverview, Gabriel Richard. Ricky's done such a great job with them because it's kind of been like this all year. And there they are, they're hoping to make another run. With OLSM, I think sometimes maybe losing a couple of tough games late kind of fires you up and relights that fire in the engine, so to speak. So they've got the talent. There's no doubt about that. I think a lot of people probably would have punched their tickets into USA Hockey Arena a couple of weeks ago. As I said, I had them number 2 in my rankings. But, now this is a situation they can get that bad taste out of their mouth, get, a couple of those losses out of their mouth, and find a way. Now they finished the season strong. They went up north and they knocked off Bay Reps and they knocked off Escanaba. So at least they're heading in the right direction. But yeah, I don't think you can discount the Eaglets either. No way, no how.
And of course, EG, and you talked about EGR earlier. They're in a region with, I know a lot of people are talking about GRCC as well. What's that gonna be like? Because, it's similar to what Heartland and Clarkston or Calumet and Houghton have to go through, because, you're facing really tough teams right away.
And there's another guy, when you talk about guys that finds a way this time of year, Mike Slobodnik and the Cougars at GRCC, absolutely. No doubt about that. And they got to be sitting back going, okay, we hear what everybody's saying about EGR. That gets you all fired up, Casey. That gets you, okay, we'll see. You're going to have to put your money where your mouth is at perhaps at some point in time. So yeah, no doubt about it. And that, again, I hate to keep saying this, but I need to reiterate it. Division III is the one of intrigue for me this year. No disrespect against anybody else. I just think there are so many interesting storylines in Division III, and I can't wait for the puck to drop. This is such a great time of year, And it's before we know it, Casey, we're all going to be chatting with one another at USA Hockey Arena when the Final Four is set. But
Absolutely.
before then, my goodness gracious, there's a heck of a lot of good hockey action in your own backyard.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course, the action starts on Wednesday. I know there's going to be a ton of games, and to celebrate that, I guess you guys decide to do a live stream for this week's hockey time.
Yeah, that's all John Kidd. I don't know how good of an idea that is. So I'm gonna give that. That's all John Kidd.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So people can join the chat, and if you don't like a pick, you can say you don't like the pick, and chances are they'll probably call me an idiot as well. But it wouldn't be the first time, nor would it be the last time. But yeah, so we're gonna do that live at 3 o'clock. So. Looking forward to it. Casey, obviously you're invited. Everybody's invited to join it. And I guess the best way to say it is celebrating what a great product we have in the great state of Michigan.
Yeah, maybe I'll catch that before I have to go to to a game that night. So
Good,
probably the
good.
Pioneer. I think Pioneer and Saline is where I'll be at. So
Oh, good. Yeah, that should be a good one.
yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. I've known Coach Zagata for a long time, so it'll be fun to see how that plays itself out.
Yeah, I think it should. Yeah, and you mentioned like live stream and all that stuff, and you were talking about like, oh yeah, everyone disagree. I mean, you probably heard that with probably all the calls you've taken all over the years, but there is one more thing I do want to ask you about.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was Stoney's last show on Friday. Obviously,
Mhm,
you know him pretty well.
mhm.
What's it like to see him? I know he's still going to be around. I know he's still going to be on the airwaves, but what's it going to be like him stepping away full time?
Yeah, he's a great guy. We worked together for many years at the Fan. I think, gosh, 99 until '09. We were there for 10 years together. We did a lot of shows together. In particular, we did the draft shows. Boy, I
Yeah.
had fun sitting there all Saturday afternoon. Couldn't be happier for him. He's had a fantastic career. He's a good guy. He deserves all the accolades that are coming his way. You can hear my puppy in the background, Cole. He's a big fan of Stoney as well. So, no, you know what, Casey? A tip of the cap to Mike. He's a legend. There's no doubt about that. This isn't an easy business, but when you can find a way to stick around for a while, you're doing something right. And Stoney did a lot of things right.
Absolutely. All right. All right, Sean, thanks so much for the time as always. I can't wait to talk about more games and we'll see you we might see you this weekend.
You got it, buddy. Looking forward to seeing you. We'll see you for sure on Saturday.
Absolutely.